Did you get your Did you get your little cards in the mail?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I haven't checked the mail in the last day or two. Maybe they're there and I got to check them.
Maybe I should. I don't know if I should open mine like live on the show or not.
Up to you.
All right.
Always makes for content.
Yes. Let me pull up my mute. And okay. Are you ready?
Ready.
All right. Welcome to episode 38 of the TCCG Roundtable. We're your hosts, Dragonrider and RonMexico. I love
Hey,
doing that every time.
I always enjoy hearing it. How's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty well. Going pretty well. How are you doing?
Doing well. Just the usual stuff. My partner just started with a new nursing job, and it's been an interesting week. A lack of sleep week, but adjustments.
Yeah, sometimes life throws those curveballs at you, and but I guess you were telling me you did make at least some use out of it, at least for today. You got
It's
some
true.
productive gaming stuff
This
done,
is
so
true. I had like three different team things to do, and then a personal couple things to do, and then a different achievement over there. And I was up way earlier than expected and couldn't go back to sleep, so I just did all of those things. It was like, hey, all right, that's nice. Got some stuff done.
I love days like that when you're like, oh, okay, well, then you just get it done, and you're like, oh, that felt great. Like I feel so much
Yes.
better. I got
And then
those.
you're like, why don't I do more productive things more regularly? Feels good to be productive. Then you're like, nah. I'm gonna definitely forget this feeling and dread the next sequence of whatever things I have to do in the future and procrastinate it for weeks for sure. Yeah.
Or like I've been known to do. I'm like almost you almost get like I don't want to say addicted, but like it's very close to that, like to the being productive. And
Hmm.
then all of a sudden you're like, I'm working like 16 hours a day every day, and then you're going, why am I stressed out and tired all the time?
Yes.
Huh? And
Yes.
then all of a sudden you're like, oh, like you're the last person. Everybody else is like, you're doing a lot, maybe too much. And then you're the last person to be like, maybe I'm doing too much.
You're like, no, it's fine. I can do this. I can juggle all these things.
Yeah,
Yeah. The
clearly I can
patented
do all of this.
the patented Dragon Rider move. I'm invincible. I'm gonna do everything. This feels great. I've got like 20 different things on my plate and I'm juggling them all fantastically and everything's going so well and I got it all lined up and everything's great. Oh my god, I'm tired. Oh, I gotta
Yes.
crash.
Yeah. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, one thing happens,
Mm,
like you're juggling all those plates, and then, uh, a slight breeze blows through, and then it's like, I have no plates anymore. They're all on the ground in pieces. What happened?
they're all shattered.
Whoops. So, speaking of that, BlizzCon's coming up. So we're preparing for BlizzCon. Yay.
Indeed.
All the work that I'm doing to get ready for BlizzCon.
Juggling all these
Uh,
plates. Throw a flaming torch
yeah.
in there. Just good luck. You can juggle that too, right? Why are the
Uh,
plates on the
yeah.
floor?
Why are they on fire?
Yeah, yeah.
It's just fine. It's fine.
I
No,
am
but
super excited about BlizzCon. It should be a lot of
yes.
fun.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I am so excited. I cannot believe it is only 3 weeks from today. That is right. 3 weeks from
Indeed.
today is the first day of BlizzCon. So I'm expecting we'll get, for Hearthstone, which is, the big reason why like we are talking about this, especially because Hearthstone is, the kind of prevalent card game that both of us play. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of news, at BlizzCon for Hearthstone. Like, I don't know exactly what they're going to announce, but I feel like when they have announced stuff at BlizzCon, it's like different every time. I don't know how long you've been involved in maybe like watching BlizzCon even when they've had it in the past. I know it's been a couple of years right now since they've had it, but like I remember one of the early, it might have even been like the first BlizzCon after the game released, and they announced the, oh my gosh, it was one of the like, was it before they even called it a mini set? I don't even remember which one
Adventures, maybe?
Yes.
Is that what it was?
That's what it is. Yeah. And they like announced it at BlizzCon, and then they were like, oh yeah, it's launching on Tuesday. And everyone like lost their minds. We were like, oh my God, like what? Like new stuff, and it's coming in like 4 days. Like it was like
that was probably
thing ever.
Was that Naxxramas? It might have been Naxxramas. That was where like the Nax out memes came from.
It might have been, or like maybe it was the second one. It was like the League of Explorers one, I think.
Oh,
that they announced that.
So
yeah, maybe it was.
I think you're right. Actually, it was because that was the one that had like the super short in between time between like announcement and release.
Yeah, because they announced it on Friday at the first day of BlizzCon, and then it came out like Tuesday or the Wednesday or something right after. So it was like 4 days or something, or 5 days. And
it introduced the Discover mechanic. Oh my God, they knocked that one out of the park.
Oh my gosh, yes. But I just remember like that being announced, and then just like I remember that feeling, and everybody just basically, like I said, like lost their minds, right? Like, oh my God, like we're getting this new stuff and it's coming like in a couple of days. Like everyone was just so excited, and like I hope that they do something like that again, because I feel like every time that they've announced stuff, I just remember, like, I don't know. I think for me, I remember the reveals and announcements of the stuff they do at BlizzCon more than I remember when it's just like a blog post or whatever, right? Because like you kind of have all of the pieces, right? You have a couple of the devs and stuff that get up on stage and they do the whole thing. Now they still kind of do that with their little like announcement videos and stuff, but it's not quite the same feel.
Yeah, agreed.
And then they do like, there's during BlizzCon, right? They always have like the opening ceremony where they kind of do initial announcements, and then they have panels and stuff throughout the weekend where they dig deeper into each topic. So you have like the little initial announcement, and then you have like the panel that dives deeper into, and they might show a couple of cards and they talk more about the stuff, and it just feels more involved than just the what they've been doing more recently, which I think for them, for the devs, it's probably the same amount of work. But I think as like a viewer, I get to feel more involved than just the little blog post, because
for sure.
I don't know. I guess for me also, like, I'm one of those people that's like, BlizzCon to me is literally like, that's my Super Bowl. I know a lot of people are like really into the Super Bowl, right? They like do the whole snacks, the whole thing. Like it's a big event. Like for me, that's BlizzCon. So like it probably makes those things a little bit more memorable for me, because I'm like, yeah, like it's BlizzCon weekend,
I'll bring
like,
snacks.
That's right. Like, oh my gosh. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Not
to overhype anything or anything like that, but what if they announce Hearthstone 2?
Whoa. Mind blown. I don't know. I'm a little hesitant to think that that's what they will do, but
oh no, I'm like... joking. I'm joking about that. Like, there's not really any reason to make like a sequel to Hearthstone. It doesn't make any sense, because it's like kind of a long-lasting type of game that always gets refreshed with new expansions anyway. The one thing that maybe could change, as far as like that aspect is concerned, would be like a whole new client. Like if they somehow had Hearthstone on a new client that kind of fixed some of the lingering bugs that they've had, since it is a game that was originally designed in 2014 and if there was a way to like carry over your entire collection to the new client so people don't just get screwed over by that. That would be cool, but that's still not really like, a hype building thing. That's like a quality of life thing. You can't really come out with like a quality of life change and hype it up like it's some brand new announcement.
Yeah, I think also recently, maybe in the last couple of years, I think I'm actually a little more hesitant for something like that than maybe I would have been, just because of things like Overwatch 2, right? Like that
Mm,
kind of.
yeah.
I know it was like at first it was exciting, and then they tried to make it different, and then it's kind of really received a lot of backlash and a lot of like negative sentiment because they a lot of people feel like maybe it didn't really deliver on what they initially said, and there's been that. I think with just a lot of other games as well, there's kind of been that feeling. I know the Pokemon card game kind of did that recently as well, right? Where they had the Pokemon Online, and then they tried to implement and changed everything over, right? They said basically that same thing, right? You can transfer over your account and all the stuff to this new thing, which is Pokemon Live, Pokemon TCG Live. And that has not gone over very well because a lot of people don't really like that new client. They say it's worse
Right.
than the first one. And like, so I don't know. I feel like more recently with those kind of things, it really just feels like it has to be something completely new and fresh for it to
Fair point.
actually
Yeah.
get the hype that I feel like that deserves. So I don't know. And also, I'm not sure if that's like, that would be really cool. I just don't think that that's something that would honestly ever really be realistic with the team that they
Yeah.
have right now. Sadly.
I mean, while we're speculating, I think the most likely thing is they just drop the expansion announcement at BlizzCon, because it's already been kind of hinted at that expansion might be coming
Right.
sooner than normal. So
Yeah.
I think it's just really, really likely if there's any Hearthstone news at BlizzCon, it's going to be this is what the new expansion is, and build the hype around that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we, like you said, you kind of alluded to it. There's that little teaser, right? They announced the kind of collection. They're calling it like the BlizzCon collection, the digital goodies that they have like every year. And there's like two packages of stuff, right? The epic collection, the epic, and then the legendary collection. So obviously the legendary one has more stuff. I think there's like 5 different games that are included in it, including their new game that's launching the first day of BlizzCon, which is Warcraft Rumble. But for Hearthstone, they are doing, it's like a card back and some packs, and then the legendary collection has an added, what is it? It's a random legendary signature card. Or maybe it's not
Indeed.
random. I don't know
I,
if it says random or not.
I think they called it mystery,
That's right. Yes. I was like, wait, I don't remember it saying random. Yeah,
which
so maybe
might
it's the same for everybody?
might mean random, or
Maybe.
might mean like the new legendary that you'll get from the new expansion, that
Hmm.
you just get to have that one as a signature instead of
Yeah.
a regular, where everyone else would just get the regular legendary for the upcoming expansion that's like going to be playable before the expansion releases, like
That's what
they've
I'm
done
wondering
with lots of
too.
different
Yeah.
cards. I'd say that's reasonably likely to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the little like footnotes basically of the information about those digital goodies, it says that mystery signature legendary, I forget the exact wording. It's like will be playable or will be released by November 14th.
Yeah, even more of a
I think
hint
so.
that like this
Yeah.
is going to be part of either the new expansion or like the pre-release part of the expansion where you can play that early card.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I mean, the timeline wise, that makes sense too, right? That it would be announced at BlizzCon, like the expansion would be announced, and then
Hmm.
2 weeks later, right, would be the 14th, or a week and a half ish later. You'd have the 14th, so you get like that card, and then probably 2 weeks after that, or maybe 3 weeks, right at the end of November, early December, the expansion would release. I think that's pretty reasonable and fits the timeline that we've kind of come to expect at this point.
TCCG detective table.
That's right. I will say, I have insider info, so I won't say if we are right or wrong. But I know what's coming. Not all of it, but yes.
Nice.
But regardless, like BlizzCon, I'm so freaking excited for BlizzCon. It's going to be awesome, and I'm very excited to see what all they announce and find out about this mystery signature. Apparently, which I didn't know at first, they revealed those digital goodies, and I was like looking at it, and I'm like, okay, $30 for the Epic bundle, or $50, and I was like, man, like I kind of want that, but I don't know if I want to spend an extra $50, for that.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, it was like, oh, by the way, if you're attending BlizzCon, you get the legendary bundle as part of like your ticket and your experience. And I was like, oh,
yeah,
I don't have to pay for it. I get it anyways.
Yeah.
I was like, yay.
It's a nice little perk. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So we'll find out what that mystery signature is then, because cool. I don't know. I sure hope that they actually like say what it is at BlizzCon, because hopefully, but we'll see. Also, I don't know if you saw this in the tweet that they posted about that. I completely missed this until I saw Celestalon, who is one of the game designers for Hearthstone, was like, people seem to have missed this, but in the post, it talks about like, hey, it says like 3 bullet points, and it says plus and more.
Oh, yeah.
What? So is there going to be more that's not shown in these digital goodies that's going to be added after they like reveal stuff at BlizzCon? What?
I don't know if like people were necessarily like missing that part. It's just a lot of times you don't really want to get your hopes up. I feel like I saw it and just sort of dismissed it because it doesn't actually say anything except a vague promise, and vague promises can be really disappointing if you get your hopes up for them. Like you could say and more, and then when you get to the point where there's and more, they're like, and a shiny new nickel, here you go. Like something just super disappointing, and you're like, oh, why was I excited about this? So like at least probably a portion of people are like, I'm gonna take this with a grain of salt. I'm not going to try to get too excited about the and more, because it could just be something really minor. And if I get really hyped about it, then I'm going to be sad. But maybe there's something super exciting. Maybe get your hopes up.
We have talked about I think we related it mostly to like the patch notes and things like that. But we've talked about like expectations versus kind of reality before. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that definitely fits in that, like, that expectation kind of thing, right? Where if you say and more, then all of a sudden if people like expect some big, huge thing, like some like double value added stuff, and then it ends up being like, only like one extra thing or a couple extra things that maybe is like related to a game they don't even play, that's going to be disappointing. I personally just completely miss that. I think because things have just been so busy. I also haven't been spending much time on social media and stuff either. So like, I think I saw the post from in a Discord server or something where it only shows you like the first so many lines, or the first so many like characters. So I completely didn't even see that it said plus and more. Like I did not even see that line straight up. Like, So,
Maybe
uh,
maybe the and more is they're doing some kind of collaboration with Kibler, who's going to be giving away his gold hoard to one lucky person. And he's got like well over 100,000 or something gold in-game gold, because his like dragon branding theme where he says dragons hoard gold, so he's literally never spent any gold that he's accumulated like the entire 10 years he's been playing Hearthstone. Maybe he gives that away to one lucky person. You don't know, could happen. It's possible for and more.
that's funny. Uh, but yes. Oh, do we have anything else going on besides BlizzCon coming up? Now that we had like a mini
Just
topic essentially to kick
just
the show
hype
off.
about just hype about BlizzCon.
That's right. That's right. Yes, we'll both be there. It's going to be very exciting. So I don't think we're going to be doing a recording that Friday morning. Probably because that's going to be like right at the same time that like the convention is
Yeah,
opening
that
and things are kicking off. So
that probably wouldn't work out so well.
yeah, this
But
is going to be a little
perhaps
difficult.
we could find a time during the third and the fourth to set aside like a little bit of time and do a recording, or we'll just record when we get back.
Yeah,
One of
yeah.
those.
We'll figure something out. We'll, it'll be good. But all right. Well, yeah, I don't know. I feel like that was a nice little like mini topic. That was great.
Indeed.
All right. Well, Ron, what do we have for the term of the week this week?
All right. So term of the week is one that I was kind of surprised when I looked back to see that we haven't covered it yet, which is rush. Rush is that's a keyword as it's known in Hearthstone. It's a mechanic that was introduced kind of a while into Hearthstone's history, and felt like it was a very elegant solution when it was introduced to the problem of charge. What Rush does essentially is it grants any minion that you play the ability to immediately attack, but only into other minions on the board. It is not allowed to hit your opponent in the face to immediately, progress game-ending type damage. So Rush is one of those ways that they could grant minions some proactivity, some ways to swing the board state around or fight back to try to gain control of the board without being a charge minion that just immediately makes it to where you don't need to interact at all and you can just start pushing damage and ignoring things. And at least for me, Hearthstone at its core, what I've enjoyed the most about it is like this constant tension of a board fight for who can gain control of the board. And for so long in Hearthstone's history, if you went first or if you had the board, well, it was kind of just over if your opponent also was a minion deck, because then they play 1/2, but it doesn't get to attack because of a previous term we've already discussed, which was summoning sickness in a previous episode. And it just sits there and doesn't attack and has no initiative. And then their opponent, who already had all the initiative, continues pressing their advantage with the initiative. And, you're stuck. So Rush, very cool, interesting way to solve the charge problem of less interactivity, less board fighting, and still give someone some initiative. Very, very cool thing that we've seen used over and over and over since it's been introduced. One of their most successful keywords. So successful, in fact, that now it's become in and of itself kind of a problem, because if your minion doesn't have Rush, well, it kind of sucks, doesn't it? Like, what? You're telling me I have to spend all this mana to play this card and then it doesn't even do anything yet? I want a Rush minion. So, like, it's opened up some new problems, but overall, still a very important, interesting, effective keyword.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of interesting. I feel like that's kind of become like for Hearthstone specifically, right? That's become kind of a baseline for evaluating new cards.
Mm.
Right? It's like when people are reviewing new sets, they're like, okay, does this impact the board immediately with Rush? Yes?
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Like, if yes, then it's probably better. If no, maybe it's worse. It's,
Or
yeah.
at the very least, like it needs to have some other type of effect. Like taunt is
Hmm.
still relevant,
Yeah.
because that at least forces someone to deal with it rather than ignoring it. Um, but outside of that, yeah, it better have like some kind of text that at least can remove a minion or do some damage or something if it doesn't have rush, because otherwise it might just not be playable.
Yeah. And I think I'm trying to remember. There's multiple card games that use the term rush, and I think there's actually a couple of different ones. I'm thinking Magic. Uh, they might have a keyword rush, but in that case, it actually means
It
that
means like charge for
it means
Hearthstone.
like
Like you
yeah,
can attack right away, and just
right,
hit your opponent
yeah.
and
So
decrease
it's
their
like
life
it's
total immediately. Yeah.
slightly different, but because I mean, this is another topic that we've talked about, right? Is the difference of being able to just target things like you can in Hearthstone versus declaring attack and then your opponent gets to choose blockers. So in Magic, it works slightly different where like it's rush, so it can attack the turn that it comes out regardless. But if you are going to attack with it, right, your opponent can potentially block. But in Hearthstone, it just means that it can attack something on the board and not their face. So slightly different, but still that like base meaning of like it can attack the turn that it comes down, as you mentioned. So I just wanted to bring that up. There's like the slight
Yeah.
different caveats,
Yeah.
depending on which game you're talking about.
There's so much like overlap in different keywords that get used. So try to be careful when we mention a specific term that this is how this term is in this game. And the effect of the term that we're describing can be used in other games, although it might not necessarily be called the same thing.
Yes. All right. Anything else you want to mention for Rush?
Initiative good. I love having initiative
Yes.
in things. It's really nice. When we don't have initiative, it feels bad. So more rush, please.
Yes. Yes. All right. Well, I think it's time to get into some news. So let's get into some news here. I guess we're gonna just put this in like our general, like we just want a passing mention. TwitchCon is coming up. TwitchCon this is the United States TwitchCon, right? Where is that
Yes,
happening?
it's in Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I was pretty excited about it, actually. I was going to go to TwitchCon. It's coming up a week from now on the 20th, I think. I was about to book tickets for TwitchCon, but I waited just a little bit longer than I normally would. I don't know why. I just wasn't. I guess I got distracted or something. And then BlizzCon got announced, and I was like, "Oh, we're not going to TwitchCon anymore."
Yeah, because then it was like what? It's 2 weeks difference
Yeah,
between
I mean,
TwitchCon and BlizzCon. So
you can go to both of them. I know some people are. I think I was watching McBanterface the other day, and he said that he was going to TwitchCon and also to BlizzCon, which sounds like a lot of things to do in a very short period of time. I hope he doesn't get sick.
yes, yeah, that's
It's-
definitely one
Yeah,
concern. I mean, I
it's
guess
always like what I'm worried about.
yeah, some people that live over kind of in that Las Vegas, California area, like maybe it's a little bit more feasible for them to do both
Oh, true.
potentially.
Yeah.
So,
I think he does live in California. For me, I live on the
yeah,
East Coast, so it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna fly to Vegas, fly back, then fly to California, fly back.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
not in the span of like a few weeks.
yeah. Yep. So I don't know if there's necessarily anything that's like card game specific related going to be happening for TwitchCon, but if there is or if we see anything, we will definitely try to mention it. But that's just we just wanted to bring that up in passing. I don't think we really have any news for Hearthstone, surprisingly, even though I know that's we feel like we've talked about it a lot already this episode. But yeah, not really anything news wise going
Just
on.
a
They're like very
hopeful
minimal.
balance patch coming soon, and then obviously like announcements looming that
Yeah.
we can
Hmm.
feel reasonably confident we're getting some new information about stuff soon, but nothing as of right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. So that one's just kind of like a wait and see here. But we do have the first year anniversary celebration for Marvel Snap coming up, which I can't believe that it's been a year already. And also that means that it's been a year of this show. Even though we have not
Ooh,
recorded every single week, we've maybe it's a little more than half of the weeks, but yeah, I think we just passed 1 year since we actually started the show. So,
nice.
woo, that's
That is
exciting.
exciting.
Um,
Yeah, can't believe it. I also can't believe it's been a year, and also a year since Marvel Snap got released. Uh, can't believe I burned out on Marvel Snap in less than a year. I'm like totally not interested anymore, but I mean, it's still a cool game. I just lost my interest.
it took me like 2 or 3 months, and then I was like, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm done with
yeah.
it. So
Kept up with dailies for a
uh,
little bit longer, and then I just stopped.
yeah, yeah. But to celebrate that 1 year, they do have some cool stuff coming out. There's going to be Twitch drops that will be running from October 18th, starting 9 a.m. Pacific time through basically the very end of October. So this whole like second half of October, you can get some Twitch drops and you can watch for 2 hours to earn the Shocker variant avatar. Watch for 4 hours to get 155 Shocker boosters and 500 credits. And watch 6 hours to earn the Shocker variant card. So kind of cool there. They've got, a whole bunch of things like in game that you can check out, and then a little little thing in the shop as well. So if you're interested in Marvel Snap, definitely want to check that out in the second half of this month. As we've mentioned before, Disney Lorcana, the Chapter 2 Rise of the Floodborn is coming a little over a month from now to local game stores. That'll be released November 17th, and then to retailers, big box retailers, December 1st. So yes, that is their second expansion. They're going to be adding a whole bunch of new like characters from additional Disney, stories, Disney movies, all of that. So if you are interested in Disney Lorcana, check out. They're going through and doing some reveals and stuff currently. So keep your eye out on some of those reveals happening. For Magic, we have the Universes Beyond set of Doctor Who launching today. Today soon. Got
Heyo.
those commander decks for Doctor Who. I am so excited. I have been watching through Doctor Who the last couple of months. Not like the original, probably like what, 9 doctors or whatever, 8, 9 doctors.
Yeah, you don't need to worry about the
You
first
know.
8. Uh, honestly,
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched a bunch of Doctor Who, and I have really watched like none of the super original ones. But when they rebooted the series with Christopher Eccleston, I think he was the 9th Doctor. That's when, like, for me, things really took off for the show. Like, that's what hooked my interest. It got my partner really interested in it. It became her favorite show. 10th Doctor, best Doctor.
That's right. That's right. And returning Doctor. He's returning in the newest season. David
That's
Tennant
right.
is amazing. But yeah, so I'm pretty excited. Also, as I said, like I've been watching it. My mom's a huge Doctor Who fan, and her birthday is on Halloween. So I'm probably getting her one of those commander decks at least for her birthday, because it's like Doctor Who, and we got to check out these cards. They're super awesome. So pretty interesting if you are into Doctor Who or into Magic or both. There's a lot of cool like universes beyond collaboration type things that Wizards of the Coast is doing throughout the next couple of years. So that is launching today. For Eternal, also coming next week. The Battle Lines set is coming October 18th with over 200 new cards and a few new mechanics. So that is Wednesday next week, the 18th. So very, very soon. And then for Soulforge Fusion, the set 3 called The Last Winter is coming in the next couple of months with a digital client that they are working on as well. They are putting out a Kickstarter to kind of celebrate this and really just kind of get that going, promote it, and hopefully bring in some new people to the digital client as well. So that Kickstarter will be starting up on November 2nd. And then I know I have mentioned the game before, but Star Wars Unlimited, it was announced earlier this year. I think in May it was like announced. They've been going to a lot of like conventions, and game shows and things like that to kind of showcase the game more. And they have officially announced in the last week or two that the game will be launching on March 8th of 2024. So that seems like far away, but it's going to be here before we know it. I mean, like the end of the year, start of the year, like it goes so fast.
Yeah, just 5 months, not too long, right around the corner. Love me a good Star Wars game.
Oh, I'm so excited for this. It looks great, and they were recently at, oh my gosh, let me see if I can remember the name of the show. It was in Germany. Spiel, let's see, what was it? Spiel Essen 2023. And so there actually was a video that was put out. It's a very long video. It's like over 5 hours. It was a live stream that they did from Spiel Essen. That was like a play, but also a dev interview at the same time. So there is both English and German because they kind of translate everything along the way. So that's probably contributing to also why it's so long. But they did get to kind of talk to this dev along the way, get to ask a lot of questions, kind of about like the design philosophies, strategy for the game, things like that. And I know I was watching through some of that, and they did also mention, the designer mentioned that the team for Star Wars Unlimited, which is being published by Fantasy Flight Games, they are actually already working on sets 7, 8, and 9. So they are working pretty far ahead, which, shout out to our teammate Dankasad, who kind of, brought up that like, maybe that's kind of risky for a game that's not even out yet. That seems like they're working pretty far ahead. But I think that kind of spurred the idea for today's topic. So we'll get into that a little bit more in the main topic, but I don't know. It's just kind of interesting to hear like how these games are planning ahead and kind of what they're working on and what they're looking at doing. So if you are interested in, as I said, for like the Doctor Who, for Magic, if you're interested in cards or you're interested in like the Star Wars universe, then this is something that is also right around the corner that's coming soon and definitely is going to have a lot of stuff over the next couple of years at least. So keep your eye out for that.
I mean, you love to hear all the planning. That's never a bad sign, that they have things lined up for like significantly down the road. So going to be a cool thing to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I have for this week's news.
All right. Next up, diving into competitive and organized play for Hearthstone. We have Lobby Legends, which is coming up this weekend. So tomorrow it kicks off October 14th and 15th. Of course, the essentially the Masters Tour for Battlegrounds is how I kind of think about it for Lobby Legends. And it's going to be casted by Soddle and Raven starting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific is where you can start with the festivities. They'll be streaming it on YouTube and on Twitch. So it should be very interesting to follow to see how that goes, especially in the Anomalies meta, which I know has received mixed reviews, but it'll be very interesting to see how the top players navigate that. Moving on from Hearthstone, we have Lorcana 1K and 2K OP Tour events have started up. There's a big event that's going to be happening in Orlando, which is also just right around the corner, and that's October 21st through the 22nd. We have for Battle Spirits Saga grand open events in November with a grand total of $25,000 cash, grand total of $25,000 in cash prizes, and Pro Tour events are on the line. And for Legends of Runeterra, as we've mentioned before, Third World Championship information about the mystery event have all been revealed. The World Championship will be happening in December from the 14th through the 16th. 64 players competing for $157,000 in monetary prizing. And, a whole bunch of extra stuff that we'll permanently be jealous about if we're Hearthstone players. Game badges, titles, card backs, icons. Top 2 get to be the Architects of Legends, meaning they work directly with the devs to create their own follower card for first place, spell card for second place. There will be a final last chance qualifier for Legends of Runeterra to make it to the World Championship, and that is running November 25th through the 26th. And there will be 2 spots up for grabs that take you directly to the World Championship in December. And lastly, qualifiers from previous Runeterra Opens, the non-Worlds qualifiers from each region, and some creators will be invited to a special event in the early part of 2024 at the Riot Campus in LAX to get a sneak peek for 2024 plans. And that is all I have for competitive and organized for now.
Awesome. Well, thank you. All right. I think it's time to get into our roundtable topic for this week, which, I alluded to. And we've kind of talked about this, I guess, in a couple different ways this episode, or at least like bits and pieces. But talking about like Star Wars Unlimited, and they're already working on 7, 8, and 9, even though the game's not even out. Like that seems like they're working so far ahead. And then I was thinking about it, and I thought, well, a lot of card games do 4 sets per year. Some do 3. Some card games do 4 sets per year. So if they're doing 4 sets per year, 1 every quarter, it's coming out in March, then that basically means that right now they're working on probably the expansion that's coming out in like fall of 2025, which actually for a card game, that maybe doesn't feel like it's that far out, right? Like that's two years from right now. So for a physical game as well, they have to think about creating this stuff ahead of time. They have to create a timeline for the actual production of the product and all of that, and getting it, released and then shipped out and all of that adds to the kind of lead time that they need to be working on that. For Hearthstone, they have said that they usually work about 1 year out for their sets and new cards and stuff that's coming. So I think for only 3 sets per year, and then the 3 mini sets in a digital game, working only a year ahead out is probably a more realistic timeline. They don't have to worry about, getting the physical stuff like produced and all of that physical games do. But it kind of led me to be thinking about, well, if these kind of card games, right, digital versus physical, do this differently, or even if physical games are only doing 3 expansions per year, or maybe some of like the smaller card games, maybe they're doing less than that. I don't know. It's kind of interesting to think how many sets or how many new cards do people want or is good for these games to be putting out. So let's talk about that. And I want to start with the basis of just like expansions or sets per year and kind of that difference between 3 and 4. Because I think 3 versus 4 is kind of
Mhm.
like the I want to say mainstream, like quote unquote mainstream uh number of the sets or expansions that come out for card games. Obviously, every game does things a little bit differently, but I feel like that's kind of I guess, the standard for card games. So, what do you think of that? And is that something that you think is good, bad, just standard at this point?
It seems fairly standard. I will say that like the question of, well, how many cards do you want per year is an interesting one. There's definitely going to be like some part of the crowd that would answer that question. Yes. Just like all of them, as many as you can give me more. And to a certain extent, there's part of me and maybe part of every card game player that would agree there. It's just like, yeah, more things are exciting, more cards. That's fun, that's cool, that's interesting. It's one of the biggest hype moments about playing any game is, guess what? We have new stuff. Who wants to say no to more new stuff? But you can hit like a critical mass. You can hit this point where it's like, okay, that might be too much, or it's maybe impossible to balance at a certain point the game because it's bloated with so many different things, or because you printed so many different things. There's varying power levels, so only a few things are actually good. You could print 500 cards, you could print 1,000 cards, but if you still are playing with the same set number of cards that you're allowed to have in your deck and the same set way of playing that game, if there's cards that are much better than the rest, then you might have, 3 to 800 cards out of those that are literal garbage that like no one would ever play or think about or even care about after a certain point if they're playing to be competitive, if they're playing in the metagame, like the last week's topic that we were talking about. So there's a very fine line to try to walk to determine, well, how much should we do? And we can't just always listen to the ideas from the player base where they're like, yeah, more, give me more, I want more, because it's really extra difficult. The more you add on, the harder it is to actually balance those things. So very intriguing, like branching type of topic. The best answer is I don't know, or I guess it depends.
Yes. I agree with that as well. I think for me, the way that I am kind of visualizing the balancing of like how a team can decide what might be the best for their game, because like I said, maybe some of the smaller card games that have small teams, they might be doing less than 3 sets a year, for example.
Mhm.
And I think for me, I'm kind of visualizing it as like a triangle. There's like 3 parts to this, and one of that is the team, right? Is like the designers, the dev team, because if it's like like literally there's even card games that are like 1 or 2 people like making the card game. Obviously, it's going to take them much longer to design all of these cards and all that than it would take a team of 50 people, right? So you do have to look at that. And also, if they're, no matter what size team it is, you still only get a certain amount of work and design and stuff from that team. Even if you have a team of 50 people making cards, like you were saying, I mean, it's so unrealistic to say, oh, we're going to have a new expansion every month or every other
Yeah.
month. Like, that's still like that, even for that larger team, that's still like too much, right?
Yeah.
So
And to also say that like in this new expansion that we're cranking out every month, the majority of the cards will be relevant and playable
yeah,
and have
yeah,
interesting and different mechanics that bring you back to the game. Like, whoa, slow
yeah.
down, buddy.
Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of like one of the sides of this triangle for me, is like the kind of the dev team, what size the dev team is, and kind of what's a realistic, like, good work pace. And like you said, right, you don't want just a bunch of cards being made every year for games that just are irrelevant or whatever. Plus, that's just gonna fill up the card allotment, card slots, like, super fast, and then that just means that they have to create these ideas and then try to create cards that are different even faster, right? And that
Yeah.
just feels really unrealistic. I think the second kind of side of this triangle for me is the cost for players, right? Because
Mhm.
if you're starting to put out, even now, right, things like Magic, right, a lot of people are getting kind of really upset, I would say, at the rising cost. Because if you want to be able to play a lot of these different modes, or not modes, but like the different formats in Magic, right? You got to keep up with like the regular expansion, the core set. Then you got to keep up like the several different sets. Then they have the Universes Beyond. Then they have this thing. Then this Commander. That and it just starts to add up. And so then you think, well, is putting that many cards out realistic for players to actually keep up with at a cost rate? Like, it's just
Mhm.
too expensive for players to keep up with that. And then you start getting that kind of negative, that negative feedback from players, like, then if they have to raise prices because it's physical cards and they're printing all of that and all of the, packaging that comes in, it starts to become too much. So what is a good amount of cards for most players, I would say, is kind of that 3 or 4, maybe.
Mhm.
And then I think the third side of the triangle is the, I don't know how to phrase this well, like the pace of play. I guess that's how I'll phrase it. Is, as you kind of said, with metas, right? If people are playing in the same kind of meta with the same cards for too long, if they want to be at that competitive level or they want something different, if you don't put out enough sets per year and enough new stuff, right, people will lose interest. They'll be like, okay, well, I
Yeah.
want new cards, I want new stuff. But if you do too many, people will be like, I can't keep up with this. I know that's happening with Lorcana right now, for example. There's people who still haven't gotten the set 1 cards. They're still waiting for
Yeah.
chapter
They're
1
like,
cards.
what do you mean Floodborn?
Yeah, and then they
Like,
see, like,
I
we're already getting
I'm trying to
announcements and
get the
reveals for
stuff. Yeah.
chapter 2. Like, I don't have
Yeah.
any cards yet to play with. And that can be really off-putting as well, because then people are like, well, cards are coming out too fast. I haven't even gotten a chance to play with these. And now you're already giving me the next thing. Well, like, so I want to play
Chapter
with these
2, I haven't
cards.
read the prologue yet. Slow down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's reading
So
this?
so for me, like, that's kind of the triangle, is like the play pace, the pace that people are able to like play,
Yeah.
and like you were saying, kind
Or
of metas
I
are
maybe refer
formed.
to that as like the pace of engagement, maybe
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
with the player base, because you you have to always have a balance. Like each game is going to be different too, so you can't just copy what worked for Magic and put that into what works for Lorcana. So that takes time to figure out at what point in the meta that we have now will people get tired of it
Yeah.
and need something fresh to infuse like their interest again. And that isn't even a constant in a game that's been around for decades, because some metas are retain interest for longer than others. And sometimes all it takes is an adjustment in the balance of the meta itself to extend the longevity of that, rather than like an injection of new cards. So there's lots of different factors that you're always having to figure out, and so many of them that are extremely vague and hard to pinpoint. For the millionth time, I'm just going to say, I once again do not envy the job of game designers and balance teams. Like, oh my God, it's just so difficult.
Yeah. And I think that also, like you said, each game is going to be different. But even as we talk about a lot on the show, is the difference between digital card games and physical card games as well, right? Because for physical card games, it typically takes a little bit longer for players to get those cards, right?
Mhm.
Like to actually physically get them in hand. You have to think about shipping. Also, is the game worldwide? Because if it's worldwide and it's digital, okay, cool. Like everybody gets them at the same time, right? But it's not that way with physical card games. I know Soulforge Fusion had this problem with their set two, where also it kind of the timing with like COVID stuff, and there was a lot of like shipping issues and things, but they
Mhm.
really only ended up being able to ship to like the United States and like maybe Canada, but they had a lot of issues with their production and shipping across Europe. And so there was like a 5, maybe 6 month period where people in the US had the set two cards before people in Europe got those cards. I mean, that's a huge time frame for like
That
six
is.
months of having the cards or not. So, if for example Soulforge was doing 3 or 4 sets a year, that's a huge discrepancy, and that's really going to again put a lot of players off. So they have to consider that as well, of like, okay, we really want to get things caught up, and that's actually the approach that they're taking now going into their set 3, is they're putting out that digital version at the same time, but they're setting it up so that set 3 is going to launch worldwide for everybody, and at the same time as the digital client, and set 3 will be in the digital client. So like they're kind of
Solid
taking
plan.
this as like it's like a ground zero almost, right? Like a reset. Okay, it's all
Yeah.
coming out everywhere all at once. And then from there they can kind of change their pace of how many cards are coming out, or how many sets they're doing per year. Or something like Hearthstone, they've decided, and it's kind of been the pace for a while now, of 3 expansions per year. But because they kind of had those longer time frames between the expansions, then they started putting in the mini sets halfway through. And it's a smaller number of cards in between, but it does shake things up. It keeps things fresh, right? Players are like, oh, new stuff. And it still kind of hits on that, like, new things for the players, but it's a smaller amount, so it's a little bit cheaper. Things are coming out more frequently. And as you said, even like the patch and things, they can change things more quickly in the digital games as well. So if things do start to get stale or players aren't engaged, then they can more quickly answer that.
I do think I'd have to go for like the current model that Hearthstone uses as like what I'd say is kind of my favorite to see in terms of expansions and releases. When you ask like how many cards per year, I like the way that they do it. I feel like the pacing works out nicely. It's not overly like um I guess launching too many cards to where it feels like it's too difficult like monetarily to keep up with purchasing expansion after expansion, although that is still a complaint from a segment of the community, which is like, hey, if I don't buy the latest expansion, I'm not keeping up at all with the game and I'm getting blown out in games because of new cards. So there's still that element to try to balance. But every 4 months you get a brand new set of like 130 something cards, and then every like in between that, essentially like every 2 months, there's half of that or less from mini sets that shake things up to address things like player fatigue with the meta and get new interesting things building on the theme of whatever that expansion was. And every now and then there might be a card or two that comes out in said mini set that demolishes the play experience maybe for a little
Yeah.
stretch of time before it gets balanced or something. But the fact that it is a digital game allows for adjustments. Sometimes the patches don't come quite as frequently as the community would like, but usually outliers still get addressed and get addressed
Yeah.
fairly quickly.
Yeah, actually, I think you bring up another thing that is kind of relevant as well, talking about not just the amount of sets, but the amount of cards, right? So for, you mentioned like 135 or 140 something, and then maybe 40 something for the mini sets for Hearthstone. So maybe just under 200 or around 200. Well, typically I would say for the like physical games, 200 to maybe like 300 at the top end is kind of the range that most of those sets come out with. And I think part of that is also because they don't have like the mini sets coming out. So they do all of that 200, 250 or whatever kind of in one chunk, as opposed to kind of more spaced like the Hearthstone and the mini set is. Plus, again, for like the price, people are going to want more cards. And there's also a lot of physical card games do like reprints, right? Like maybe you'll have
Right.
Fireball, and then in the future set, you'll have another Fireball, but it'll be from that set. So like it'll be the Fireball with that set's logo and icon. So it's maybe not 200 or 300 brand new, never before seen cards,
Right.
but they are releasing those. So there's kind of that difference of like the number of cards in the sets that they're releasing as well.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of different nuances in physical games, in digital games, within like the different types of games too. For as another example for Hearthstone, because that's always my primary example, is the number of cards is also directly influenced by the amount of classes that are available to play in the game. And there's class specific cards that get released, and then there's cards that are available for every class to use. And different types of games have different mechanics for how they structure that game. And all or the majority of the cards could be available to every play style, or you could have just specific like things that are only available to specific play styles or specific types of classes or heroes or whatever the game might have categorized. And that also is an influencer on how many things get printed. And occasionally, yeah, there's going to be filler. Like in any set, anything, here's a card that you got, either maybe it's printed in a physical game or, you got it in your digital game, that if you really look at it, you can't honestly picture any scenario where that's actually good, where you put it in your deck on purpose, in a deck that you expect to win games, and think that it is a better choice than some of the other options you had. Like, yeah, there are gonna be some that just happen. And part of the goal, I think, is to reduce the amount of filler, or at least the amount of cards that the general community perceives as filler, because you'll get a pretty negative reaction for your game if you print like half the new cards are filler cards. Yeah, nobody wants that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's just kind of like an interesting thing, I think, to talk about. And as you mentioned, right, there's different kind of audiences, different types of players that they're all going to be looking for something different, right? Even from the same card game, they're all going to be looking for, hey, I'm more of like a casual, more free to play, or like very low spend type of player, and more sets or more cards is too expensive for me to keep up with. There's going to be players who they like focus on getting a whole set of the cards like as fast as possible when it's released, and then so they have all of the cards right from the get-go, and then it's like, well, if they're looking for a new thing, they're going to want more sets more quickly. So yeah, it's really interesting to talk about. I don't think that there's necessarily a complete like right or wrong answer to how many cards or how many sets should be released per year. I think all of the various factors that we talked about is gonna be different. Like it's gonna be so different for every single game and kind of what's going on. So I don't know. Like right now, I think that's also probably one of the potential downsides to that like planning so far ahead. Like I said, like obviously Disney Lorcana planned ahead with their
Yeah.
sets and how many they were going to be releasing, and then it's almost backfiring on them right now because of the other issues that they came into of like actually not having enough product for the demand at the beginning of
Right.
the launch. So it's
Right. They planned everything out as if everything was going to go go off without a hitch, right? And then
yeah.
there was a problem. Well, that screws up the timeline that we made for like years.
Yeah. And
So
they're
do
sticking
you
to that
adjust?
timeline, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's ooh,
Might be time to adjust. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. It's something that I think is again, it's variant for each game, but even when you ask players, like their
Mhm.
answer on that is gonna vary completely off of what game they're talking about, what kind of player they are, what maybe their income and like disposable income that they can put towards the games. Are
Mhm.
they a more casual, like just fun player that they don't really care about having a full set? Are they a competitive player who wants to have a full set plus more to be able to make all these decks and like I don't know. But I think it's probably about time to wrap up. Is there anything else for this topic that you want to include?
We could probably talk more about this one like ad nauseum, I think, because it goes in so many different directions. But I think it's just a really interesting topic to think about and to keep that in mind, like in whatever game that you're playing, when you're thinking about the future of the game that you are playing, what has to be accounted for to continue making it something that is enjoyable, that draws you and other players into it. And if you come up with a good idea about it, because everyone's got conflicting ideas, you know, we live in a day and age that you can basically almost immediately directly communicate sometimes with developers, and that'd be a good thing to do. If anyone has some innovations and you want your game to be more successful, let them know. Send some feedback their way, as long as you keep it at least moderately positive. But try not to just browbeat people. It's not going to go anywhere. But if you have like some good, constructive, interesting suggestions, this is like a little primer, I guess, on just the tip of the iceberg things that go into making games and how complicated it can be. And it's so hard to think of all the different things that an extra, brain thinking about it, coming up with a new way to approach it could go miles.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping we get to talk to some devs in person at BlizzCon. And that's how I'm tying
For
it
sure.
together to the beginning of this show.
Love it. Good
All
time.
right. Thanks. Well, that's going to wrap it up for our roundtable topic this week. Let's get into our closing here. And as always, thank you so much to everyone for tuning in, checking the show out. And, if you or someone that you know would be interested in joining us on the show, we do love to have guests and do some interviews. So please reach out to us. You can email us at tccgroundtable@protonmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at TCCG Roundtable. And in our top pinned tweet there, you can also get the link to our Discord. Jump in there. We would love to have you in the Discord. Love to start getting that a bit more active. Post about different card games, post info, post your thoughts. And we would love to chat with you in there. If you are interested in checking out our video version of the show, you can find that each week on my YouTube at youtube.com dragonrider TCCG, and check out the audio versions wherever you can find your podcasts that you listen to. And we do have our affiliates, Inked Gaming. Definitely would love if you wanted to help support us. Does support us directly whenever you do use our link to get anything from Inked Gaming. They also have a whole bunch of like cool Halloween spooky theme stuff right now. So if that's something you're interested in, you know, some cool like Halloween spooky play mats right now that's going around. So, you know, grab yourself a sweet play mat and help support us at the same time. And we would greatly, greatly appreciate that. And then jump in our Discord or message us on Twitter and show us what you got. That would be super cool. But otherwise, I think that is going to be wrapping it up. So where can people connect directly with you, Ron, if they want to chat with you?
So you can find me on Twitter at Ron_HS. You can find me on YouTube at RonMexico HS. And you can see me streaming live every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Twitch at RonMexico HS. And where can they find you individually, Don?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, DonnieDK. That's DAWNIEDK. You can find me on YouTube and maybe like less frequently now on Twitch, but both at dragonrider TCCG. And you can also hear me chatting everything for standard Hearthstone if you're interested in, you know, improving your ladder play. You can hear me talking every week at the Dr. 3HS podcast. And that is going to wrap it up for this week's show. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you at the roundtable.